911, what's the location of your emergency?
3919 Germania. I think my sister's might have been murdered. It might be some blood. I don't know.
Okay.
She did not respond when I yelled at her.
All right, sir. I have help coming out there for her, okay? Do you know of anybody that might want to harm her or anything like that?
Absolutely nobody.
On the line is 61-year-old.
She was 64. He was 13. By 2:40 a.m. she was dead. 911 DSPCHER 911. What's the location of your emergency? Cal R. Darelf, 3919 Germain. I think my sister might have been murdered and there might be some blood. I don't know. She did not respond when I yelled at her. It is 2:00 a.m. in the small village of Fairfax, Ohio. The streets are empty. The houses are dark. In one of those houses, a 13-year-old boy lies awake in bed, his mind no longer governed by the constraints of childhood. For months, perhaps longer, he has lived in a separate psychological reality. While his twin brother sleeps peacefully down the hall, he has been consuming every scrap of documentation about serial killers that the internet could offer him. Ted Bundy, the methodology of strangulation, the choreography of a crime scene, the techniques used by famous murderers to evade detection. Tonight is not a spontaneous act of violence. Tonight is the culmination of obsession.
It's 2 a.m. in the small village of Fairfax, Ohio, and tonight, a 13-year-old boy decides this is the night he becomes a serial killer. For years, he's been obsessed with true crime content, and with his family preparing to move away the following week, he's finally ready to put everything he's learned into action. At 2:30 a.m., he slips out of his house and walks less than 10 feet to his neighbor's house next door. Once inside, the 13-year-old puts on a pair of gloves, something he learned on YouTube that would prevent him from leaving behind his DNA. He moves silently through the house before approaching the bedroom of an elderly woman. At 2:40, he begins strangling her, but despite months of preparation, he quickly realizes this will be far more difficult than he expected, because when the woman wakes up, she fights back, punching and brutally scratching the boy's face. But just minutes later, the woman is dead, killed at the...
He knows his family is moving in 1 week. After that, the opportunity will be gone. In his mind, this is the moment. This is when the fantasy becomes flesh. He believes he has planned the perfect murder. He believes he will outsmart the police. By the end of this video, you will understand that the most terrifying predator is not always the one who emerges from the shadows of a parking lot at midnight. Sometimes, the monster lives next door, watches Dexter with you, sits at the dinner table, shares your DNA. By the end of this video, you will understand why a child's obsession with true crime became a blueprint for murder. And you will ask yourself a question that will follow you long after the final frame. The first piece of the puzzle would not reveal itself for hours. It would not come with sirens or forced entry. It would come as something quiet, something almost accidental. The discovery would begin, as so many do, with a phone call from confusion. DSPHR, all right sir, I have help coming out there for you. Okay, do you know if anyone might want to harm her or anything like that? Daryl, absolutely nobody. Sheila Tenpenney is 61 years old. His sister Sheila is 64. They have lived their entire lives in Fairfax, a village where, until this moment, the most dangerous thing has been complacency. When Daryl discovers his sister's body at 1100 a.m. on a Sunday morning, he does what any sibling would do. He calls for help. But the moment he speaks to the 911 operator, he has inadvertently set himself on a collision course with suspicion. The detectives who arrive at the scene will, within hours, become convinced that Daryl himself is responsible. They will scrutinize him. They will search his home. They will take his DNA. For them, the logic will seem airtight. A man discovers his sister's body and immediately mentions injuries that no one had yet mentioned. A man who never attempts CPR. A man who seems to know too much. What the detectives do not yet understand is that they are holding the wrong suspect. And while they pursue a man who is guilty of nothing, the actual killer is watching from the shadows. Think, gathering intelligence on their investigative methods. The killer is, at this very moment, only 50 feet away. OFICR, just try to touch as least as you can. Do what you guys gotta do. Yeah. No, I see you have blood. Did he cover her up? Second OFICR. The dispatch said that he found her with a pillow over top of her. Sheila Tenpenney lies on her bed, partially clothed. There is visible trauma. There is blood. There is evidence of a violent struggle. The officers photograph everything.
Just try to touch as least as you guys can. Do what you guys gotta do.
Yeah, no. I see you have blood. Did he cover her up?
I don't know. The dispatch said that he found her with a pillow over top of her. I don't know about Peroxide and cleaning chemicals? That's different. A lot of cleaning chemicals.
Pepto-Bismol.
Should you drink it?
I don't know.
Well, let me go. You want the monitor?
We have rigor.
On the bed lies 64-year-old Sheila Tenpenney, partially clothed and deceased for what appears to have been
They
several
document
hours.
the scene, they take forensic samples. But in these early hours they make a critical assumption that Sheila has perhaps harmed herself. That the chaos they are witnessing is the aftermath of someone taking their own life. It is a merciful interpretation. It is also catastrophically wrong. The autopsy will later reveal the truth.
1 week passes, and then comes the update investigators have been waiting for. The forensic and DNA results arrive, completely overturning their initial assumption. Investigators determined that Sheila Tenpenney had suffered to the beneath her.
Sheila suffered blunt force trauma to the head and neck. She was strangled to death, and beneath her fingernails, beneath the biological markers of her desperate struggle, are traces of blood that do not belong to her. DNA, proof that she fought back against her attacker, proof that an unknown male was in that room. The investigation pivots.
So early Monday morning, officers returned to the neighborhood.
Detectives begin canvassing the neighborhood. They knock on doors. They collect DNA from anyone who may have had contact with the victim. Elimination samples, they call them. But what they are actually doing is casting a wide net, hoping the killer will volunteer his own genetic evidence in hopes of appearing innocent. It is a classic interrogation tactic, and it works on anyone who does not understand that DNA is permanent. DNA is absolute. DNA is a signature written in the language of guilt. 50 feet from the victim's house is another home. Inside that home lives Rebecca. Conversation that will change everything. Robbie CXA, and actually Sunday morning at like 6:00 a.m., we had to run to the ER because my son, the cat, I guess, was sleeping on his face and they startled each other in the dark. Oh, man, and it scratched him. 13-year-old Levy Cart has fresh scratches across his face and neck. Deep scratches, brutal scratches, the kind of scratches that require stitches. Rebecca explains that her cat, Marshmallow, is responsible. A freak accident in the dark, a startled animal, a child bleeding. The officers note this. They do not immediately connect the scratches to the murder, but they note it. They ask to collect DNA from both twins. Rebecca agrees without hesitation. She has nothing to hide. Her children have nothing to hide, or so she believes. What Rebecca does not know is that identical twins share the same DNA profile. The laboratory will later return a result that states both boys match. Both boys' genetic material is present at the murder scene. And yet, due to the miraculous coincidence of identical DNA, the forensic analysis cannot tell them apart. For the first time in the investigation,
the next day, the DNA results finally come in, and investigators are stunned. Both of Rebecca's sons are a match, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were both at the scene. According to the forensic analyst, the lab cannot tell Levi's DNA apart from Hunter's because identical twins share the same STR markers. Needless to say, investigators are now facing an extraordinarily rare problem. But even with these findings, detectives struggle to process the facts that the suspects are only 13 years old. Not only would they have to
face an impossible problem, they have a killer's DNA, but they cannot legally determine which killer it is. The investigation reaches a stalemate. Daryl has been cleared. The broader neighborhood has been screened. And now, attention shifts to two boys who are sitting in a police station, separated from their mother, answering questions. Hunter Cart, one of the twins, is talkative. He is eager to help. He speaks unprompted about his brother's injuries. He offers theories. He seems cooperative. Levi Cart, the other twin, is different. He is measured. He is careful. He has clearly studied interrogation tactics. And when confronted with physical evidence, a watch that was recovered beneath Sheila's body, a watch that belongs to him, he offers an explanation that is almost plausible. That's Lewis's. That's Livy's watch. Lovey, I don't know where my watch is. I lost it. But there is something in the way he says it. There is a precision to his language that does not match his age. There is an absence of panic that should be present in a 13-year-old boy accused of murder. And while Levi is being questioned, while he is maintaining his composure, the detectives are receiving They have found a journal. They have found entries that read like a blueprint for violence. Violent fantasies, references to serial killers, and most damning of all, an entry written just days after the murder. This one was a fighter. For weeks, Levi Cart had been researching how to commit the perfect murder. He had watched hours of true crime content. He had studied the methodologies of Ted Bundy, who selected victims based on proximity and isolation. He had learned the mechanics of strangulation from YouTube videos created, paradoxically, to educate people on how to survive an attack. And he had developed an elaborate plan to execute a murder, literally, and then have his twin brother blamed for it. The scratches on his own face could be explained as a cat attack. His DNA at the scene would be confused with his brother's. He would be two witnesses in one face. The plan and its structure was not without merit. But it was a plan conceived and executed by a 13-year-old who, for all his research, for all his obsession with serial killers, did not account for one thing: the cumulative weight of evidence. The watch, the journal, the social media posts, the shirt covered in blood, the gloves matching the crime scene, the physical evidence that accumulated with every search, every interrogation, every moment he believed he was outsmarting the police. Sheila Tenpenney did not die because she was vulnerable. She did not die because she was alone or isolated or forgotten. She died because she lived 50 feet from a child whose mind had been colonized by the fantasy of violence. She died because an adolescent with a disability, who spent his days editing videos of a fictional serial killer, decided that fiction should become fact. She died because no one noticed. There are moments in an investigation when the narrative shifts, when the evidence stops being theoretical and becomes overwhelmingly, irrefutably real. For the detectives working this case, that moment came not in the interrogation room, but in the margins of social media, in the digital footprints left by a child who believed himself to be a genius, on platforms where he bragged to other users, where he discussed the murder in terms that revealed not remorse, but satisfaction. This one was a fighter. It was not the statement of someone mourning a victim. It was the observation of someone cataloging his work, archiving his act, preparing for what, in his mind, would be future murders. The question that haunted the lead investigator, the question that appears in his official statements to the court, is: was Sheila the beginning of Levi Cart's violence? Or was she only the beginning? And there is another question, one that haunts the family of the victim, and one that will haunt you. Sheila Tenpenney was a known member of the community. She had lived in Fairfax her entire life. In 20 years of living next to the Cart family, no one, no neighbor, no teacher, no counselor, reported concerns about Levi's behavior. No one contacted authorities about the content he was consuming. No one intervened in the escalation of a child's obsession with serial killers into actual murder. The detectives would later discover that Levi had spent months planning this crime. Months of research. Months of fantasy refinement. Months during which he lived a double life, attending school, editing Dexter videos for TikTok, and simultaneously constructing a murder scenario in his mind. No teacher asked why. No administrator noticed. No parent, other than his own, knew. On November 10, 2025, Levi Cart pleaded guilty to aggravated murder, aggravated burglary, and strangulation. The prosecutor sought to charge him as an adult, But Ohio law, like most states, protects juveniles from certain adult sentences. The maximum sentence Levy could receive was incarceration in a juvenile facility until his 21st birthday. He will be released in 2033. He will walk out of that facility at an age when many of his peers are graduating college, when they are starting careers, when they have built consensual relationships with other adults. He will walk out into a world that will have moved on. The lead investigator, in his statement to the court, expressed a concern that the judge did not address. In the future, is he going to learn from those mistakes? That's what I'm concerned about. In an institution designed to rehabilitate, not punish, no one can guarantee that a child who planned a murder for months, who researched serial killers obsessively, who showed no remorse, will emerge as anything other than a more educated predator. There is a parallel story that occurred in these same weeks, unfolding in the same town, but with a different trajectory. It is the story of what happens when a family fails to notice, when institutions fail to intervene, when a child's descent into violence goes unremarked. But before we explore that, I want to ask you something. You have watched this entire narrative. You have learned the details of a premeditated murder committed by a 13-year-old boy. You have heard the voice of his mother, confused, defending her sons, unable to believe what was unfolding. You have heard the detectives, methodical and careful, assembling an impossible case against a child. You are now the neighbor. You are the person living 50 feet away. You see a 13-year-old boy watching Dexter. You notice he is discussing serial killers with unusual intensity. You hear him describe how to commit murder. You observe that he is researching how to dispose of evidence. You watch his obsession deepen from passive consumption to active planning. What do? Do you knock on the door? Do you speak to his mother, Rebecca, and express your concerns? Do you contact the school? Do you call Child Protective Services? Do you trust your instinct that something is deeply wrong? Or do you, like every single neighbor on Fairfax Street, do nothing? Do you convince yourself that it is not your business? That you might be overreacting? That teenagers are just interested in dark things? Do you rationalize your silence? Because here is the truth that the detectives discovered only after Sheila was dead. There were people who noticed. There were neighbors who knew something was wrong. There were indicators that something was evolving in that house, in that mind, in that digital footprint, and they said nothing. Sheila Tenpenney paid for that silence with her life. Levy Cart planned her murder for months. He researched it. He fantasized about it. He prepared gloves. He selected a time. He walked across a lawn in the darkness, crossed through a door, and committed an act of strangulation that required him to apply consistent, sustained pressure to another human being's windpipe until that human being stopped breathing. He returned to his bed as if nothing had happened. That is not impulsive violence. That is not a moment of rage. That is the executed plan of someone who had decided, weeks or months earlier, that murder was the logical endpoint of his obsession, and it could have been interrupted. It should have been interrupted. It would have been interrupted if anyone, had reported the warning signs to the authorities. Levy Cart is now incarcerated in a juvenile facility. He will be released in 8 years. When he walks out, Sheila Tenpenney will still be dead. Her family will still be grieving. And a community will still be asking, how did we miss this? The answer is not complicated. We missed it because we chose to look away. So the question I leave you with is personal. What would you have done? Tell us in the comments below.